Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Red Rising Book 2, Golden Sun, chapters 23, 24, and 25, Trust, Bacon and Eggs, and Preeters, which is the first chapter in Part 3, Conquer. In these chapters, I get my wish. Sevro's let in to the secret. I'm so excited. I'm so delighted by this, you guys. It made me so happy. And I love how angry he is in the midst of all of it. Oh, Sevro. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Alex for commissioning this episode. So, you guys, there was so much in this section, but 23 has to be the one that everybody was the most excited for, right? I find it really fascinating, and I will get to this point, but I just wanted to mention off the top the fact that Sevro was let into the secret before Darrow tells him, I think is really interesting. That somebody else deemed him safe. And I find that really compelling for some reason, you know? And I think that I like it better too, even than Darrow deciding finally that it was safe to tell him. I think that I would have felt a bit of a way about Darrow even taking that risk. If after everything he's gone through, where he almost died for this mission, you know, if he was willing to take that kind of leap, I was simply going to, while I understand and even in a way respect it, would feel like, God, that is just such a huge leap of faith. But the fact that it's already kind of happened, and Sevro just is fucking tell me. I know already. I need you to say it, though. I really appreciate it. So, it starts off with him finding Sevro and immediately saying she cared for you, talking about Quinn. And he's real weird about it. He doesn't reply to the she cared for you. He says, in the end, I believe I'll enjoy war. Gotta toughen my spine a bit, callous my hands. Bastards tell us it's all roses and glory. Don't you smell the roses, Reaper? And I felt like there was something significant there to the way he was saying this. It's just the wording is sort of odd, but I don't know. I might just be reading into that too much. And he says, of course I know she cared, but never in the way I wanted. She deserved to live. If any of us ugly little shit-eaters deserve it, it was her. There wasn't a cruel bone in her body. But it didn't matter. It doesn't matter if we're good or evil. It's all up to chance. Which immediately, he sort of argues with himself, where Darrow says, well, it was up to chance that you even met her. And he's like, no, it wasn't. It was my dad. My dad put that in place, and he set it all up so that that would happen. And Sevro, it boils down to, all of this is such horseshit. They try and act like this is for a greater purpose and storied legends, and it's just wanting stuff, scrabbling over it, you know? And, then he ends it with, I came for you because he told me what you are. What do you mean? I ask with a nervous laugh. Turn it on. I know you brought one. You're thorough, Reaper. Always thorough. Why are you acting so shut up and turn it on? So what am I ask. Even now? You are wound tight. say the name of the person who sent me. And eventually he says Fitchner, to which Sevro literally spits in his face. And he says, all right, look, you fuck with me for a single more word. You say somebody else's goddamn name again. And that is a wrap on me being your guy. I will not do this anymore. We lost somebody today. She fucking died, dude. And you're just sitting here not willing to tell me a thing. Now, here's the thing. He's correct, right? Like, we all can understand where he's coming from on this. And he's not wrong. But all I keep thinking about is the description that Darrow gave of what would happen to everybody he knows if he was found out. And how they would follow back the track of who he, like, because they would inject him with chemicals that would keep him from being able to lie. So they would get everything, everybody's names. So even though Sevro is like, I won't stick my neck out for you again, she died. I'm like, yeah, but he's like looking at the death of his whole family, everybody he knew, and everybody who helped him get here. Nevertheless, though, you know? So he finally says, Ares sent you. And there's a long, like, moment. And then finally he pulls a crystal from his pocket, and it's called a whisper gem. And apparently it's like set up to deliver a one-time message before it self-destructs. And he blows on it, which I don't know if it's like, it says he says for your breath only. And I'm assuming normally you show somebody something and it's for your eyes only, like you're the only one who is allowed to read this. I thought that the way he said this was more, it won't open for anybody else, you know? But anyway, the helmet of Ares shows up, the Helmes of Eris. And he says, Harmony has betrayed me and initiated a campaign against our principles. I discovered her intended use of you too late, but you were wise. This is why I chose you. Steps are being taken to curb her efforts. Continue with your own. Set Augustus against Bellona and fracture the Pax Solaris. And then Darrow, like, is going to try and respond and realizes it's a recording. I realize this must be difficult. I have asked too much of you already, but you must carry on. Sow chaos. Weaken them. You have much reason to doubt me. We have not contacted you until now, because you were watched by Pliny, by the Jackal, and by the Sovereign spies. Troublemakers breed interest, but I have watched you too, and I am proud. I know Io would be as well. In case you doubt the veracity of this message, a friend would like to say hello. And his helmet is gone, and there's Dancer. And he says, hey, your family's alive. We're with you. The end's near. Like, just stay the course. I was so surprised at how relieved I was that Dancer was still alive. And I'm just like going off of the fucking evidence in front of me here. I will not lie to you guys. I do have like this suspicious streak where a part of me is like, I don't know. Is this real? I want so much to believe Dancer's still alive. Ares is out there standing on other principles, and that Harmony decided to do a whole other thing. I can't go down the what if road, or I won't ever settle on believing anything. So I am choosing to take this at face value. A part of me is still so suspicious. I can't deny that. I feel like I almost wondered if Sevro was setting him up. And I didn't really think that, because Sevro just doesn't seem like the type who'd be willing to do that. But I had a tiny little bit of like, oh God, dude. And I don't know how easy it is to fake this sort of thing. having Ares' helmet appear. You don't see his face. You don't know what Ares even looks like. And then Dancer, I'm like, she said he was dead and it was a convincing story. At the time, I sort of thought maybe he isn't dead, but it never occurred to me that she was straight up lying to Darrow. I thought it was going to be he was still alive and she had like taken over and didn't realize that he had managed to make it out, but that he saw how she turned a corner and didn't feel okay coming back because he knew that she would like stab him in the back. And it may be basically that, like, it may be that she set him up to die and he knew. And because like, we don't get any information about that here, about how Dancer is. It's only Ares saying Harmony has betrayed me. So I'm like assuming that the story she told Darrow of how Dancer died is true, in that it looked this way because she set it up that way. And that he was aware of what she was attempting and basically like set it up to fake his own death. But like I said, this is possibly faked. You could, in this universe, you could do a lot of things. And I have to assume faking this is something that can be accomplished. But we've just got to take a breath and decide how deep we're willing to go down that rabbit hole. And I am drawing that line here. And I'm not going to continue to speculate on if this wasn't real in anything more than a casual way. I am choosing to just believe what I'm being told here. So Sevro says, you look good for all that surgery. Ares sent that cripple to me, the one who sent you to the Institute. And the fact that he saw him in person made me feel better. But again, he could be lying, but I just don't think he is. And then Darrow is hugging him and sobbing and shaking. And I really love this because all anybody ever says is how Darrow doesn't let anybody in. And the reaction that he gets here from Sevro, he's just like a little bit freaked out, you know? He's like, of course I'm your friend, you know? And Darrow just being so relieved that there's a person he can talk to about this. He's going to have to be really fucking careful, you know? And I don't know how well and impervious jam fields are, if there's a way to get around them, but I really feel relief that there is anybody. This is always how I feel in any storyline where a person has to keep this kind of like major secret. Superhero stuff as well, or when people have like, you know, powers. Anytime that the story is that this person has to like continue to cover everything up from everyone around them and create like increasingly ridiculous explanations that are in many other ways hurtful to people about why they weren't there for something or how something got screwed up. It gives me so much anxiety. I am an oversharer because I want people to understand and I want to feel like I have done my due diligence in trying to communicate with you. And so anytime that the point is they can't communicate a thing, it's agonizing. And you've got to really make it feel legit that they aren't communicating it to anybody, because otherwise I will come up with a million scenarios why it's probably fine to say the thing. And that's what was so great about how this functioned up to now. I fucking 100% believed he could not tell a soul. There was like a part of me that wanted him to tell Sevro, wants him to tell still Mustang, but it was much more like a vague wish list and not something that I was like, God, author of this book, why haven't you done this yet? And this is such a relief. And I really, really do want him to tell Mustang. I can't imagine Mustang reacting badly to this. Everything that she stands for, to me, points to this being the exact thing that is her jam. I just really believe. So, all right. He hands me a towel, which I blow my running nose into. He makes a face. What? That was for your eyes. We laugh together and then sit in awkward silence. In time, I ask him how long he's known. He suspected something since the Institute, he says, where he heard me say bloody damn. My voice went all thick, all rusty. Then Dancer showed him the video of my carving. And I really, really like that he says, somehow they knew you could trust me even if you didn't, shithead. Oh, bless them. And he says, Darrow to Sevro says, does it not bother you? And he's like, well, first of all, bother isn't really the word to describe a thing like this. But you know what? You're the one who like vibes with me the most, and you're not even of my world. So I guess I'm going to lean towards whoever is going to take my part in things and understand. So yeah, I guess it just doesn't matter. And he keeps mentioning how he's actually technically bigger than Darrow is, despite his stature. You know, as a gold, he's considered small and scrawny, but compared to like a red. And you guys, I can't believe that I have taken this long to ask this question. And maybe there are things that happen eventually that will lead to different answers. So maybe that's why like nobody has brought it up themselves. But fan casting for this series, who are you picking? Now, I want to tell you about what is going on in my mind. Because I have this thing sometimes where actors who pop up and stuff that I'm watching at the time just happen to fill in on books that I'm reading as those characters, even if their appearance doesn't exactly jibe with the way they're described. And there are 3 fan casts I've got going on in my like mental movie that's happening. One of them, and I don't really get it, is the guy who plays Adam from Sex Education, the Netflix show, as Darrow. Not totally sure why. You know what I'm saying? Like, the dude is big, jacked, somewhat intimidating, is good at playing an angry bully, but also being extremely sensitive. So I think that's where that's coming from, but it is sort of a weird one. And then, this one's funny. For both Sevro and the Jackal, they've got like different outfits, different makeup, different hairstyles, but both of them are Timothée Chalamet. And I know that the Jackal is not described as looking like Sevro looks in any way. Like, he's not meant to be real small or anything. I just keep picturing Timothée Chalamet, and I don't know where that's coming from either. So I just wanted to mention that. And the guy who would play Fitchner in my head is a very particular actor, and I cannot think for the life of me what his name is or like a single thing he has been in at this moment. So if anybody cares, tag me on, the old Discord and ask, and I will make an effort to track down the name of the actor, because I'm pretty sure he is Irish. But yeah, this is the dude that I always picture for Fitchner. And other than that, I don't really have a mental picture of almost any other character. I think the only other person that I've kind of pictured is the guy who plays Cassius, would be the one who plays Peeta in the Hunger Games. And I don't really know that works, but that's what I've got. So anyway, I just wanted to mention this because it's something that like normally I would have brought up by this point, and I don't know. I've just been so engrossed in the actual story, I guess. So he tells him about how long it took to reach him. 3 months it took me 6 months on a torch ship to reach you. 3 months from Triton after Dancer showed me the truth. Was I confused? Damn straight. But still, I boarded the ship and had 3 months to reconsider. Still I am here, so I think the time for second-guessing my commitment has passed. And anyway, my gold brethren have been trying to kill me since I was born. He looks around, uncomfortable even after all we've shared, despite the jam field. which I get that. And he says that he thinks that Quinn would have understood, but he doesn't actually recommend telling Pebble or Clown. He's just sort of like, if you want, but this is not on me to share. The rest might go along. Thistle won't. Roke won't. Not in a million years. Too in love with their own species. And that I thought was surprising. I really had put down Roke as somebody who would be cool. Who would I don't know. It just felt like he is also very sensitive, and also like the two in love with their own species. That's the part that sort of tripped me up, because I don't know that I agree with him on that. And I can't tell if that's because I have misunderstood Roke, or if it's because Sevro kind of has his own bias about Roke and he's underestimating him or misunderstands him. I don't know. But yeah, I just was genuinely surprised by that. And he says he doesn't know about Victra. And when Darrow says, what about Mustang? He says, I don't give love advice, shithead. I appreciated that, because that's really the thing that Darrow is asking. And I love that Severo just cuts around the question of whether to tell her to the actual thing that Darrow's asking, which is do I bare my soul to this woman, And then he's like, I hope that the fact that I'm struggling for change and equality doesn't mean I don't get to go get a massage from a pink, because I really, really need it bad, actually. And he says, feels good. That's how I know it's right, Reap. Despite all this shit, it feels good in here. He taps his thin chest. It feels, how do you say, bloody damn good. And I really, really love that moment. This is the thing. And I think that it can be hard sometimes to tell the difference between what our heart and our gut are telling us and what we just want to be true. But when it's happening, a lot of the times the difference, especially if there's been a sort of build up and a choice. Even sometimes when you think maybe you made the wrong choice, at least having the choice made can feel better, Sorry, there was chat. Cassie says, I could see Peeta's actor as Roke, but I'll need someone more divine for Cassius. Fair. I was thinking of Roke as being a lot more slender than Peeta. And now I'm thinking who would Pax be? But the truth is, guys, the actors that we would choose for these sorts of roles would be young. They would have to be young. And I don't know the names of a lot of young actors. And I'm wondering if that's the reason I picked Timothée Chalamet, is that he's one of the only younger actors that I'm really aware of. And if we're going with Timothée Chalamet, and a lot of this series has Dune-ish energy to it, why don't we just do Zendaya for Mustang? That would work. I mean, I would be down with that. But anyway, so then we have this conversation with Victra, which I just thought was fantastic. So Victra is actually, I think, genuinely into Darrow. But they have this back and forth, flirty kind of conversation that's eventually she says, why is it that you act as if I am trying to get something from you? I feel like I have done nothing but put myself out there. And you talk some shit about the way Tactus is and how he's just not quite there for you. But frankly, dude, you're like that with me and I'm not really getting it. And he says, all right, honestly, a big part of that is that you're what's-her-face's sister. Yeah, it's hard knowing you're Antonia's sister. And when she says, but I'm not her, and he starts to say, I realize that, she says, do you? And starts to walk away, but finally turns and is like, look, do you think I'm a bad person? Do you is that the reason? Do you look down on me? And when he says, why would you think that? She kind of pauses and then she's gestures and says, this is how I survive. Do you understand? It's how my mother taught me. It's what works. And this really, really hit for me. It's the sort of thing that I feel I grew out of, but I think back and the way that I behaved in the world and with men, it was very put on. It was really acted. And my motions were choreographed. My whole stance, I thought about. I was so hyper conscious of the way that I was communicating with my body, with double entendres or just enough flirting because I knew it would help me out in the situation, even if I didn't really mean it. And just the advantages that I knew it would give me because they had paid off so many times. And a part of me felt really gross about, but I was also angry because it did work always. So I felt how come I feel bad about playing a system that is explicitly built on me acting like this? And I was just really wrapped up in this sort of self-fulfilling prophecy and a kind of self-loathing, but also a pride because I had gotten so good at it in a lot of ways. And then there just reached a point in my life where I was like, I am not interested anymore. The things that I was getting out of it weren't enough for me to keep behaving that way and putting on a show in that way. And I really like the fact that she just kind of brings it down to this question of hey, so what's the deal? Do you have an issue with me, or is it just that you don't, she says something how you admire women, but you don't enjoy them. And finally he says, how about we try something new? And he acts like they're going to start from scratch and introduce themselves to one another again. And he tells her, I love music, dancing, and I'm very fond of fresh fruit, particularly strawberries. She says, I like the way stone smells before rain falls. She makes a face, cheeks flushing red. And don't laugh, I actually hate the color gold. Green goes better with my complexion. So that was a just nice moment. And I feel a little bit bad because I think Victor genuinely does like Darrow and sees that he is something special. I do not think that he will see it for her. I think he's just so wrapped up in Mustang. And I feel if anything, I would like her to go after Sevro. I just want her to not be hurt. And I don't think he's really made any secret of the fact that he's still hung up on Mustang. I'm sure she knows that. And to a point is making her play while she can. And if it lets him forget Mustang, that's all to the good, But, yeah, so this whole I'm just worried about how everybody's feelings might get hurt is really what it comes down to, because I like her and I hope that she's not fucking with me. So he's pacing his quarters and he can't sleep, and he finally decides that he's just going to go down to the cafeteria and get something to eat. And when he gets there, Mustang is there. And the two of them are sort of in the same situation with just trying to make sense of everything that's going on and what their next move is going to be and how many people they've lost. And she is sitting here waiting for food to come out, and there is just a cacophony coming from the kitchen. And she tells him I don't know what's going on, but I think the cook is freaking the fuck out I just like came in and he just, ran off and he was mumbling about pheasants. I couldn't really hear him. And then we have this server comes out carrying a tray of not only bacon and eggs, but pumpkin waffles, cured ham, cheeses, sausages, fruits, and a dozen other dishes, but no pheasant. His eyes turn the size of waffles when he sees me. Apologizing for something, he sets the tray down and disappears, only to reappear a minute later with even more food. And Darrow's like, dude, how much do you think we eat? And this dude just stares at him until Mustang dismisses him. And I'm genuinely so curious. He says, I think the Ash Lord was a bit different from us. Which initially I took as like, this guy is used to getting his ass reamed for fucking any little infraction and fuck up. So everybody is just terrified and trying their best to like please them. I don't know if that's it. I'm like, I don't know. Is it possible that these guys are like trying to show their gratefulness and don't know how to really do that? Do they understand about the takeover of the ship and like exactly how that went down? I'm assuming that they do, but I don't know. It was just funny. It reminded me of like, Luffy's feasts in One Piece, because he is just such a huge eater. So yeah, they talk a little bit about like how they can't sleep and that they each lay on the floor and she goes into the closet. They both basically have like PTSD. That's essentially what's going on here. They went through a really traumatic experience. It was not just having to constantly be on your guard, but watching people get killed in front of you and potentially being on the receiving end of a death blow. He almost died. It's just there. I think it's really easy to sort of forget how unnatural and vicious the Institute was and how it would like imprint itself on your brain. And I really appreciated this like mention of how they are trying to cope and they don't really know if it's normal. They're surprised that the other does the same thing. Sometimes I hear noises and sleep in the closet thinking if someone's coming for me, they won't look there. I've done that. Really does help. And then she mentions something about, like, it doesn't help if the closet is big enough for a family of obsidians. And she asks herself sort of in this rhetorical way, I wonder if they cuddle. And he gives her basically like a history lesson about why not. That is so awful. It's just so touch of spring, touch of summer, touch of winter. No touch of autumn, I guess. And in order to like destroy the kinship Obsidians possessed, because they were the only like uprising that almost did something, they put like religious figures in amongst their shamans and had them say that like touch weakens their spirits and makes it so that they don't have that kind of like close knit thing going on. They touch each other in sex and to prevent death and to kill, but no cuddling. So this is so sad. But I just want to like step aside and acknowledge that he told her all this and then says, but you knew all that. And I thought for a moment that it was supposed to be like, yeah, thanks for mansplaining. But instead it seems like she was sort of testing him a little bit, like just wondering if he's paying attention to anything, if he notices things. And I thought it was sort of a weird test because it's such a like fact-based question. I don't know though. Maybe it's like the way in which he words it that signals to her that he like cares enough to notice what the history is about these other colors, and that if he were a person who was less invested, who was more frivolous, he wouldn't even like respond to that, I don't know. It was just sort of a weird thing that I felt like she was setting him up to answer, and I was trying to see why she would have done it that way. And when she says it's nice to remember all that's going on inside you, he blushes and she's like delighted by it. And she says, one of my dissertations concentrated on mistakes in the sociological manipulation theorems used by the Board of Quality Control. I deemed them short-sighted. The chemical sexual sterilization of the pink genus, for instance, has led to a tragically high suicide rate within the gardens. And I was trying to make sure I understood this. They breed pinks so that they can't have children. And what she's saying is that a lot of them commit suicide due to the fact that they can't have children. Because, like, that's just... I'm not trying to say that this would never happen, because I don't... Look, personally, I'm somebody who's never really wanted kids, so it's always been hard for me to relate to just wanting them at all. The idea of wanting them so bad that you would end your own life if you couldn't have them really is foreign to me. And the way I'm trying to contextualize it is that this is not like somebody who, you know, if their body were working in the way they feel it should, then they would be able to have children. And they are an outlier amongst like the majority of people who are able to have children. And so they feel this like otherness. They are coming from a place of, I have not been allowed. That has been taken from me. The whole option as a people, I have been told I can't participate in. And coming at it from that direction, I can understand more, with it just being like, I was unlucky enough to be born into this color, and now I can't have a family. I can't have any kind of connection like that. So as long as I'm understanding what she means there, but she says the rigidity of laws maintaining the hierarchy are so strict they'll one day break. 50 years from now, 100, who knows? There was this one case we studied where a gold woman fell in love with an obsidian. They had a black market carver alter their reproductive organs so his seed was compatible with her eggs. They were found out and both were executed, their carvers killed. But things like this have happened 100 times. They're just scrubbed from the record books. And when he says it's terrible, she says beautiful. And obviously, he's coming at it from his angle of terrible with, like, I am one of the oppressed peoples, and the way that we maintain things is fucked up, and I want to change that, and that's what I see here. But what she is looking at is the fact that how these people are attempting to break away is not, like, based in, I hate this system. It was based in, I love this person. And it's not like they hear about others doing it and they're like, let's go for it, babe. They love their person so much that they are willing to take risks that to them would be unheard of, because they are completely erased from records so that nobody gets an idea in their head about doing it. And how incredibly brave it is to truly believe you're the only one who has ever done something, which, like, the taboo of it. Can you imagine? You know, I don't feel like it's something that we can quite imagine, but that is how much they care about this person, that they are willing to go all the way and, like, completely flout expectations and risk their lives, very literally. And, you know, of course, at this moment, I was like, oh, yeah, see, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like he could tell her, but he's also not doing this out of love. Like, he is because of Io, but she's dead, so it was really anger that motivated him. Like, I don't know. And she's like, I'm just thinking that somebody eventually is going to find the records of this stuff, and they're going to put them out there for people to see. And then we have a little joking around about like how he would think of her and what she was up to when she was at the other school. And she misspeaks and is just sort of like, you know, what boys I was kissing. And she catches herself and is like, all right, look, I need to talk to you and explain this. And he really tries to insist you don't have to explain. You aren't mine and weren't then. You are your own person. And I think he's an idiot, but you are free to do what you want. You don't owe me an explanation. And she's like, okay, look, but I wanted it to be different. You want to know how I feel? I'll spit it out at you. All my life I've been taught to regard my family over all else. And she says, you know how I like trussed my brother up and handed him over on a plate? That was me really going out on a limb because I believed in something that I thought you also believed in. And, you know, turning my back on my family, everything that I have been taught is that that's the thing that matters. And I wasn't willing to do it. And, you know, she knows that her twin is a psycho. So it's not as if she's blind to she's not the kind of person who's like loyal in a way that causes them to bury their head in the sand. She is loyal because it's what she has been taught, but she also has common sense and is observant and willing to see her family as people. So she says, like, we were going to be the respite, basically, in the Institute from the ceaseless horror that was going on everywhere else. We were doing something better. And she puts this like hypothetical, maybe I was hurt. Maybe I fell into his bed for solace, and then says, shove that idea up your ass. I am not some frill-wearing tramp. I am a genius. I love her so much for that. I really do. I say this because it is a fact. I am smarter than any person you've ever met, except perhaps my twin. My heart does not make my brain a fool. I sought out a relationship with Cassius for the same reason I let the sovereign think she was turning me against my father, to protect my family. And she says that she's been able to manipulate people and that she knew exactly how to handle him. And this is the thing sometimes, if you are intelligent and observant, you have to decide like whether you're willing to use that against people sometimes. You know, it's something that kind of falls under the same heading as what I was talking about with Victra. With like, how much of yourself are you willing to compromise to get what you want? Because if you know how to play certain people, you can get what you want most of the time. You've just got to have a lack of conscience about that. Or you've got to be more afraid of what happens if you don't do it. And this aspect of her, I really enjoy, because so often people being capable of manipulating others are painted as inherently bad people. And that's just not true. Everyone is capable of doing certain things. And I think that the better part of us tells us when the thought occurs, that would be really shitty. Do not do that. And whether you're a good person or not depends on whether you fucking listen to that, you know, or what your other options are. In the chat, Cassie says, there are enough social restrictions that people feel intimidated to break even when they're aware of whole communities who have done it, i.e. gender transition. That is a good point. But yeah, so it's clear as she's talking about Cassius and how like losing his brother fucking broke him. She says basically that he has not healed from that. And that was what made it really easy. But also you can feel like the self-loathing there, that it was something she had to do. She did it well, and she isn't sorry, but she hates having to do it. And she knew if she did this correctly, the future that was ahead of her was just this like life of playing a role and not actually caring about the person that she was with, because everything would depend on her making that relationship work. It's not like she could keep her family safe for a while and then dump him. They would have to ally with each other. She would have to marry him, you know? And again, she doesn't regret having done it. But she says, he walked in at the gala and it was like the ground had broken up to swallow me. I felt like a fraud. A wicked girl who'd contrived a reason to do something stupid. Can't you see why I did it? I didn't want you to die. I don't want you to die. Not like my brother Claudius, not like Pax. I would have done anything to stop it. And he says, I can stop it. And she's just like, you say that. And I know you really believe it, which is what's worrying. Basically, like, there's going to come a point where you finally find out you can't stop it. And it's just going to be me here fucking, holding the bag. And he tells her that she's not wicked or cruel. What you do for people that you love cannot be judged. Clearly, feeling like he's setting this up for himself. I don't think he really is. I'm not going to be that unkind. But if you wanted to be really like, sort of, what's the word I want? Not sinister, cynical about it. You could say that he is like sort of paving the way. And he's sort of baffled looking at how hard it is for her, even though she's a gold. And the golds should have it fucking made. But they have created a world in which they can't even enjoy having everything. There always has to be some other struggle, something else to strive for, some other cruelty that has to be inflicted that people need to avoid. Like, and he comes to this conclusion that is so great. Looking at her, I know I was wrong. She is not a distraction. She does not compromise my mission. She is the point of it all. Yet I cannot kiss her. Not now, when I must break her heart to break this empire. It would not be fair. I've fallen in love with her, but she's fallen for my lies. Disagree. I'm just saying, Darrow, I think you can tell her. I think it would be advantageous. It would open up your whole relationship. And you could rely on her in a way you can't now. Because she is like Sevro, where she can sense you're holding back. And that's the thing that bothers her about you. She knows you're capable of doing great good and that you care and have this profound sense of justice that is not to be found in a lot of other golds. And yet, there keeps being this mask, and she can't make sense of why you're coming across this way when she knows you are this way. If you opened up, those things would finally click and she would get it. And that would be like, you would have your ride or die here, And that's all I'm going to say about that. So they have a conversation about, not Sevro, about the jackal and like, don't trust my twin, and basically does the whole, like, he just doesn't see us as people. He is a monster. And he's like, don't worry. Like, I need him. I'm trying to work with him, but I do not trust him. You don't have to tell me about that. So the door to my suite hisses open, and he sees Ragnar right behind him, saying, someone breathes inside. And I love how Ragnar's dialogue is always in bold. It just really makes an impression. And it turns out it's the jackal. He's in there in a bathrobe and slippers. And he's got some liquor. And he says, I really thought I was going to drown in that lagoon. I thought it was an unfair way to die, because I had pictured that I would really go out in a blaze, and instead it was going to be fucking pitiful. And mentions like the rocks in the mine. Obviously this changes our strategy, but I don't believe it must change our alliance. Nor do I agree. We need your spies more than ever. Pliny won't take my ascension lightly, and you're stuck here in your father's court. The Politico will try to remove us both. I make no mention of the sons of Ares. As I guessed, they were forgotten by all as soon as I tipped that wine onto Cassius's lap. Which, that's definitely backburnered for the moment. I don't know if it's even on a burner right now. He may have just taken that out and put it in the fridge. So he talks a little bit about the fact that, like, Pax's family still holds a grudge against the Jackal. And he's like, they fucking should too. Like, you killed their kid. Their rising star that everybody fucking loved, who I had grown to really love. And, to be fair, the Jackal is very rational about it and is like, no, I get it. Like, I'm not mad at him for it. It's just fucking annoying right now. We need them, And he almost asks about Leto. And he says to himself, why show a devil you know his strength? It just makes me a threat to him, and I've seen how he deals with threats. Better to play ignorant and make sure I'm always useful. And I thought that was sort of weird because it felt to me, the moment when the Jackal killed Leto, that he made eye contact with Darrow and grinned at him. Like, he saw Darrow seeing him kill Leto. So, like, now it sounds like Darrow's trying to be like, I can't let him know I know that he killed him. And I'm like, he fucking knows, Darrow, doesn't he? I really thought that scene was quite clear. It was not even like he was particularly that, like, trying to hide it that bad from everybody. Or, like, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. It just really felt like I read that scene one way. And now the way Darrow's talking about it, it didn't happen at all the way that I remember. So I'm doubting myself. I kind of want to go back and reread it. So anyway, he says, all others will try to suffocate the flames to preserve what they have, especially Pliny. And he says, well, then we must be cleverer. And your sister can't get hurt. That's part of the agreement. And he says, if she's ever wounded, I believe it'll be from you, not me. But I'm on your level. Fan the flames, spread the war, win it, take the spoils. And the chapter ends with him asking about the shipyards of Ganymede. So then we go to chapter 25, and we're having a big meeting here. And this chapter, it's sort of funny because it goes on a while. I'm sorry, I'm adjusting in my seat here. I just don't think that this needed to be as long as it was, because I don't feel like we learned too much new information here. I think maybe the biggest thing that we're meant to take away is the nature of how he and the Jackal and Mustang are all sort of working together and, like, learning how to do that in a way that is natural and much more akin to the way they interacted in the Institute, while everyone else seems to be unaware that they're on the same page right now, So the chapter begins, part 3, with, we are undone. That is what the Archgovernor of Callisto has said. And they basically go down the line of, like, great houses and the fact that every single person is turning their back. And the thing that I don't know if they're really surprised by this, because, like, there was a point where I think it was the Jackal who says it's good that, like, the Sovereign tried to attack us in the middle of the night because that'll make us look like the victims, which will buy them some, like, I guess, like, a little bit of goodwill because they didn't initiate the thing, but it makes them look weak, and it doesn't seem to have, like, helped their position at all. Just because they are the victims, and this is what is pointed out later, like, I think there was a moment where they thought, well, our cause is the right one, and finally Darrow has to be like, Golds don't care about causes. Ideals are not the thing that motivates us. We want power. We want to materially be able to rule and have that be organized and an agreed upon structure. And whether a thing is right or not isn't fucking what we care about. It never has been. But the fact that he was like saying, good, that this will make us look like the victim, you know, it seems like maybe he forgot about that. And everybody that is closest to Augustus, and by that I mean mostly Pliny, is like, we got to cut our losses, bud. We've got to run, and we've got to like hole up somewhere. And apparently her people have gotten to Mars before they were able to get back. So they can't flee to his like home planet, so to speak. I don't even know, like when I said his home planet, I was talking about Augustus. Are all golds born on the same planet? Or I don't even know how that works, actually. I've never considered this. So he says here, cautious bloody fools surround the archgovernor. Gold's too frightened to lose all the favor and power they've gained in the past to risk any of it now. Worse, they squeeze me out. Alliances form against me. You can see it in their eyes, in their shoulders. My gain is their loss. And I liked this being illustrated and outlined very specifically that way, because at first I was sort of like, they're against you. You're the one who saved all their lives. What the fuck? And then I realized, like, oh, okay. So, like, yeah, you saved their lives, but in some ways, the fact that they owe you makes it worse. Because you're really kind of nobody. And now you've swooped in and done this amazing thing, and it makes them look bad. And now they have to try even harder to, like, unseat you. And they resent it. Which is a really fascinating, like, you know, I sort of liked this. Okay, nope, they're all colors born on each planet. Okay, thank you, Ashley. I love, though, that in the midst of all this, like, serious conversation, Mustang shows up with an apple and just loudly and very crunchily eats that thing like it's the best thing she's ever tasted. And make sure to bite into it during very critical moments in the conversation, breaks and sentences, to just fucking throw things off a little bit. This is very, very funny. She kicks her boots up on the table and her dad has to tell her to like put her feet down. And Darrow specifically comments on the fact she's one of a very few women in the room. Agrippa Augulii should be here, but it was her betrayal that depleted the Augustus fleet of the numbers he needed, and it was her betrayal that made Augustus put men on Victra to make her sure her loyalty to him is true. It took nearly all of my clout with the man to keep her out of the brig. We've been chased from the core worlds here far beyond the orbital path of Mars. Our asteroid mining operations are seized. Augustus' assets frozen. His cities, those that did not surrender already, are besieged. Not to mention there are bounties on our heads. The old men don't like that I have the second highest bounty behind Augustus, which that is very funny. That's some One Piece shit as well. Just like, how dare. Her eating that apple. So this is when Pliny is just like, we've got to retreat. Your whole line could end. There's nothing else to be done. And Augustus is like, so just run off with what we've got until we get some backup, basically. And he says, or surrender. To which I'm like, I really, really want to know what you think is going to happen if you surrender, dude. Because do you think she's not going to kill you? Why wouldn't she just do that at this point? What, like, I think that's ludicrous. I can't even believe that he has the balls to say that they should, like, what? But anyway, so eventually when Augustus asks Darrow's, this is like his opinion on running, and Darrow says it makes you look weak, and Pliny says we are weak, but this makes him look wise. And I was like, first of all, when you say we are weak, and I'm like, yeah, but you don't want to look that way. But he follows it up with but this makes him look wise instead of weak. And I'm like, I don't see that, sir. I really don't. It's for instance, you guys, you tell me, you see somebody who has had their entire ass kicked, and they go into a closet and hide from whoever kicked their ass. Do you see that as weak or smart? And we're going to say that these are like almost peers. We're not talking about like a little kid hiding from their parent or something. I'm talking about, me duking it out with like Rashawn and one of us hiding in a closet. It feels weak to me. If we're on equal footing like that, I don't know. Granted, like, I get that they're not on equal footing because he's been stripped of so much, but you know what I'm saying. In terms of, like, the way that the strict hierarchies work. Anyway, so overall, this is mostly an argument between him and Pliny about what looks what way, whether or not they need to be more concerned with like the reputation or the facts of the situation. I love so much that Cavax is yelling about how they need to rip these people apart, but when he like yells too loud, he's got this little pet fox that like flinches because he's so loud, and he immediately completely loses track of what he's saying to feed his little fox like jelly beans. You guys. That's a wrap on who's my favorite character. Are you kidding me? He's got a little pet, and he just forgets he's even talking about war because his pet flinched and he feels so bad about it. That's just it for me. I am picturing Cavax as Tormund Giantsbane, and clearly probably much older than that really should be, but like, I guess we could say Tormund, present day Tormund. But yeah, this is the cutest, and I would be lying if I were trying to argue that I haven't completely lost my place in a conversation with Owen because Pippin did something cute. And I just like looked over and was like, he's literally like pouring his heart out about how he had a bad day at work. And I'll be like, because Pippin rolled onto his back, and then I'm like, I'm so sorry. I know you were talking about things. So anyway, he says, when their balls are ripped off and made to dangle from their own earlobes, others will remember you are ruler of Mars and they will beg to aid you. And he just goes back to feeding his little fox her jelly beans. And they will know that we few lords were found loyal, Daxo quickly adds, waving to the golds around the table who nod appreciatively. Daxo sucks on a stick of cinnamon. He smiles even more than Pax, though his are half as grand and twice as mischievous. The only frown I've yet seen on his face was when he saw the jackal at the gala. Sucking on a stick of cinnamon. That sounds awful. Has anybody tried that? I feel like that's a no for me, dog. That's all I'm saying. In fact, I don't know if it was intended this way, but I'm going to take it as how much of a like badass he is. That seems like a nice treat for him. There's something very almost Stannis-like about it, but not exact. Because Stannis, it's about like how austere you can get. He likes hard-boiled eggs and lemon water, and that's like his favorite meal. I wouldn't say that, but it's more like he chooses stuff that's like normal people would find that's too strong. That's too much, sir, So let's see. And Darrow's considering that it sort of seems like maybe the Augustus has forgiven his son and like is moving past the reputation that he built for himself that he was trying so hard to reject. But, you know, the Telemanuses, no. They're sticking to their grudge, but they're going to stick behind Augustus at the same time. And he's just trying Darrow to like keep it under wraps that he's got an alliance going with the Jackal, because he's worried that will sort of lose their trust forever, which I could understand them reacting that way, but I do think it would be very short-sighted. So we eventually get to the part where Pliny is like really fucking like backbiting Darrow and everything he says. And Cavax is like making fun of the fact that they have done these like basically artificial intelligence spreadsheets on the likelihood of who is going to back him up, and that basically there is not a single family that would throw behind us. It's just not happening. Naturally, they fear the repercussion of choosing the wrong side. The Saturn governors are a lost cause for now. They see Rhea's corpse in their sky every day, which is the moon she destroyed, I'm assuming. In the Galilean sector, the presence of Lornar Arcos on Europa is a problem. His isolationist political leanings have proven infectious to the archgovernors of Jupiter's moons. And Augustus is like, isolation, I mean, he's basically retired, and honestly, that's not sounding like such a bad plan. I kind of am a little envious of that. To which Mustang chimes in, and he says, you would lose your mind. There is no way. Retire you? I don't see it. Sorry. And he smiles, but it's called tight and unreadable, before saying how well my daughter knows me. And I think there's like, I'm sort of going to throw something out there that I have no, and I really want to emphasize, no evidence for. I like to think that his smile is indicative of the fact that actually he kind of fantasizes about not having to worry about any of this shit anymore. And he has to put on this front about how he thrives on it. But actually he is sort of fucking sick of it. And other people are still seeing him as this other way, and he has to maintain that. But he really would rather not, you know? And that's how I'm going to like interpret it, even though I don't have anything to like justify this. I'm humanizing him really in a way that he may not deserve. But I just wanted to put it out there because I think that would be like a sort of fascinating way to play this. So, eventually Darrow, talking about power, and he says, we attached ourselves to a star, but the star falls. And Cavax starts to yell about, don't insult your lord as if. And he says, as if what? He's a fool? He's not. So come off it. But I like it. He's just willing to say the thing. Your star's fallen, bruh. What do you think I'm not going to say? That's what we're talking about. That's the point of this conversation, is that we all know what's happening. I'm going to say it. Okay? Everybody calm down. And he says, you know, Tactus, look at him. A loyal ally for years. As soon as I started to go a different way, he just decided to steal from me and bounce. That's how they operate. So what I am saying is, if we're losing, we fucking go for it. And the Galilean families are soft for Luna for one reason: commerce. Ganymede has her shipyards. Callisto is little more than a factory of grays and obsidians for the Society's armies. Europa is an ocean world of banking and deep-sea mining and vacation homes. Io is the breadbasket to any world along Jupiter's orbital path. They depend too much on commerce with the core to run to our side, and even the basest child knows what happened when the Ash Lord descended upon Rhea. So we must impress them. We must terrify them so that they know our power can touch them at any time and they cannot risk alienating us. And he says, we take their ships, we take their children, we take them as allies by force. And the Archgovernor, to his credit, is like, yeah, okay, wow, sounds amazing. Fuck you, dude. Like, that's not a plan. You're just like, why don't we just be badasses and go do what we want? That's nothing. And I got to say, honestly, he was so right, and it caught me so off guard that I, like, got cackled a little bit. So this is when Darrow is like, all right, so guess who's got a moonbreaker? And apparently this is like a big deal. Everybody whistles. Augustus is straight up like, is this real? And he says, yes. The sovereign commissioned it as a present for her little grandson. To which Cavax says, what a loving woman, with complete sincerity. I love him so much, you guys. I really do. And when Pliny tries to be like, how did you find this out? Darrow's like, by shoving it up your ass. That's how I found it out. Mind your own business. You've got your sources. Pliny tries to be like, it's important where this came from. And he's like, you're fucking right it is. Is why I'm not telling you, jackass. And then Pliny says, all right, so you want to steal the Moonbreaker? That's like a big deal. And Darrow's like, no, wait. The Moonbreaker? No, I want to steal all the ships. Dodoy. A ship? What the fuck would that do? That's nothing. Give me the ships. Plural. Thank you. And that's how the chapter ends. And I am dying to see how everybody has responded to this. Because once again, low key, this is not a plan. Like, it is the beginnings of a plan, but just being like, yeah, we're going to pull off this fucking heist. Are you? Okay. I hope so. Good luck. Anyway. So yeah, that is the end of chapter 25. This was a really fun section. All right, guys. I gotta end this. I'm over time, as usual. I really appreciate you all so much. Thank you again. Ooh, Cassie. Oh, I love that comparison. For those who haven't read the Cradle series, this won't make sense to you. But for those who have, Cassie said, Darrow is like Lyndon Aurelius. It's all not enough. That is true. Read the Cradle series, everybody, if you haven't. Like, it's just so much fun. All right. Thank you again. Appreciate you all. And really looking forward to the next one. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.